one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, September 8th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 16 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The second French but first national debate in this federal election campaign happens tonight at 8 o'clock. Now, Omni Television will be streaming this in 6 different languages. The English debate will follow tomorrow night. With a preview, here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
It's very important for the leaders to do well.
With less than 2 weeks left in the campaign, McGill University political scientist Daniel Ballon tells me these debates come at a crucial point. Election day is on the horizon, and with the Conservative and Liberal leaders in a tight battle, any edge they can get could help solidify party positions in the final stretch.
I think it's important for, one of the leaders to gain momentum, and if you do well in one debate in French, you hope to repeat the same thing the day after.
But the other leaders will look to grab attention by trying to take the frontrunners out at the knees. Unlike the first French debate, Green leader Annamie Paul will be participating tonight. Cost of living, health care, and justice are a few of the themes for this debate, which will see leaders face off in a variety of head-to-head bouts, while also taking questions from journalists and voters. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Showers and thunderstorms up until about 6 o'clock this evening. A gusty wind out of the southwest, the high 24 degrees. Tonight will clear out, 14 for the low, and tomorrow some sunshine to start. Showers for the afternoon, the high about 22. For today, the high 24.
And right now it's 16 degrees in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls. 18 months after they were suspended, flights are taking off from Billy Bishop Airport in Toronto. That includes 6 daily round trips to Ottawa. The first Ottawa-Toronto takeoff is in about 50 minutes from now. Here's City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
Porter Airlines and Air Canada flights suspended for a year and a half, as mentioned, because of the pandemic, taking off again from Billy Bishop Airport today. Today is also a significant date, given the fact that it's the 82nd anniversary of this airport's first commercial flight back in 1939. It's been a turbulent time for the airline industry as a whole, with travel restrictions, and certainly it's been hit hard here at the airport at Billy Bishop, as well as the airlines that serve customers here. Already seeing some staff arriving here at Billy Bishop Airport in advance of welcoming travelers again later on this morning. I'm Kevin Meisner.
City News Time, 9:02. Kingston police are looking for a missing Ottawa woman believed to be in that city. 31-year-old Cecilia Tardif was reported missing on Labor Day Monday, but has not been seen since a week earlier, August 30th, in Kingston. She is white, 5'2", 110 pounds, and has blue eyes and long brown hair. When last seen, she was wearing a light blue knit dress, leopard print slip-on shoes. Anyone with information is asked to contact either Ottawa or Kingston Police. A vote on the Herongate reconstruction proposal is scheduled for today at Ottawa City Council. Community groups, though, are holding a rally beforehand voicing their concerns. Groups like Acorn say the proposal has too many loopholes. The massive reconstruction expected to take place over the next 25 years. It includes an increase in housing units on the site between Heron and Walkley to over 6,400. Now, protesters say they're concerned about the long-term rent rate. The protest is underway now at the Human Rights Monument. The City Council meeting will get underway at 10 o'clock. Bank of Canada is set to make the latest interest rate decision this morning. Economists expect the central bank will keep the key interest rate target on hold at 0.25%. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Midweek. A rainy midweek. Welcome. Wednesday, September 8th. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News and Rogers TV. And I'm Mark Day, in for Rob today. And it's time to debate. 5 federal party leaders will face off in the first of 2 official election debates tonight in what may well be their best chance to sway voters before Election Day on September the 20th. With less than 2 weeks to go, millions of voters are expected to tune in for tonight's 2-hour French debate, tomorrow's English debate. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet, and party leader for the Greens, that's Annamie Paul. They'll participate in both of these debates. People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier did not meet the criteria that was established by the Independent Leaders Debate Commission for participation, so he will not be a part of that debate tonight or tomorrow night. Both debates organized by the consortiums of broadcasters. They're being held at the Museum of Canadian History. And joining us now to talk more about tonight's debates, to set them up for us, our Parliament Hill Bureau Chief for City News, Cormac McSweeney. And good morning. How are you, Cormac? Mr. McSweeney, are you there? Hello, Cormac McSweeney. And we're just waiting to get Cormac on the line. He will join us in just a couple of seconds. And Cormac's been following this campaign for the last 2 weeks as we get set to head into the first debate tonight. And a lot of talk about what's been going on the campaign trail, especially with Liberal leader Justin Trudeau. He was talking about how it was absolutely unacceptable for people to be throwing things and endangering others at a political rally. We'll get Cormac's thoughts on that in a second. But let's get to the debate first. And Cormac joins us now, our Parliament Hill Bureau Chief on City News. How are you?
Good. We got that technical issue figured out. I can hear you now.
You can. That's all that matters. When we're on radio, as long as you can hear me, we can make things work.
I mean, I could have just talked for like 8 minutes straight if you wanted me to. But,
well, I know you can, and that's why I love you. So tonight, it's the first of two official big debates. The French one tonight. What are you looking forward to seeing in this one? I know they had the French debate, TVA, that was last week, but this is something different. They're ready to fight tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be different, and actually it might be a little bit more muted than the TVA debate, just because the TVA debate was kind of designed to make a splash. It had a lot of head-to-head battles and open free-for-all debates with the moderators sort of jumping in just to ask questions or to challenge leaders every now and then, but it was basically just pitting a lot of leaders against each other. This format is going to be a little bit more traditional in the sense that they've got the format set up so that each theme is going to have a question from a voter, a one-on-one debate between two of the leaders. Then they're going to open it up to 3 leaders debating, and then a question from a journalist to each leader, and then a free-for-all portion, an open debate portion. So it's going to be a little bit more structured than the TVA debate, not allowing as many interactions as we saw in TVA. But it's still going to be interesting because we've got 2 leaders who are fighting to form government right now, and 3 leaders that are going to be trying to make a splash to make sure that they can position themselves well for September 20th to try and make sure that they make the gains they're looking for. You know, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole has to appear prime ministerial. He's leading in the polls for a lot of the polls that we're looking at. Some have the Liberals slightly ahead, and some have them in a statistical tie. But O'Toole's got to appear prime ministerial. He's got to be able to respond better to questions and challenges than he did in the TVA debate, because he was put into a corner many times in that debate over issues like childcare, like abortion, and so he's got to be able to respond a little bit better. And I'm sure they will, because that TVA debate was, I won't say it's a practice round, but it did give them at least a little bit of for O'Toole anyway, because he's a rookie at these leaders debates. A little bit of experience to figure out how to perform well, and they should have more fine-tuned messaging and better responses this time around. For Liberal leader Justin Trudeau, he's facing the possibility of losing government. It's a very close race right now with the Conservatives, and so he's probably going to come out swinging. He's probably going to have the same energy that we saw in the TVA debate, which is the Justin Trudeau we've seen in the past. Up until the TVA debate, I think some people were saying that his campaigning was not quite like what we've seen in the past, but he seems to be getting his groove back just in time for these debates. So we'll see how he performs. And, the other three leaders, as I said, they've got to try and make a moment, if you will, to try and garner some attention, grab more headlines, because they risk at this point of being sidelined to a two-person race, and they don't want that to happen. The NDP, by all accounts, are making some gains right now, and they want to try and keep those gains, if not grow even further. And for the Bloc Québécois, they're at risk of losing seats in Quebec. They've got to make a splash here. And the Green Party polling really low in the polls right now, so they've got a lot of work to do to try and bring that number up as well.
Yeah, some people will say, debates really don't matter. But when you're looking at these poll numbers that have come out in the last couple of days, even with Abacus data showing the Conservatives, Liberals tied at 32% each, the NDP at 21. I mean, that's a close race for the Conservatives and Liberals. And of course, the debate matters. I mean, you can go on Twitter and Facebook and, you're not going to run into many undecided voters on social media. It's either one way or the other. But I think this year, there are a lot of undecided voters heading into this election. I think that's why, this debate, both of these debates will be important.
Not every debate is going to be a "you had a choice, sir," Brian Mulroney, John Turner moment. I know everybody looks for the knockout punch, but the knockout punch rarely comes up. But it can, sort of turn the tides, if you will. It can be a pivotal turning point. Even if there's no clear winner, that could help certain people in certain situations. For Aaron O'Toole right now, if he comes out unscathed from these two debates, that's going to be a key moment in this campaign, because that could help him really solidify himself as the front runner, build more trust with voters that he can lead this country and be the prime minister. If the other parties are able to sow enough doubt into the possibility of an Aaron O'Toole government in the minds of voters, even if they don't come through with the big win, that doubt in the voters' minds could steer them away from the Conservatives, and we could start to see a shift after that. So you don't need any massive moment to really make a change in the campaign. Look at Justin Trudeau in 2015. He headed into that first Maclean's debate with a lot of low expectations. The Conservatives, I think in retrospect, many Conservatives would agree with this, but they shot themselves in the foot for that, because they set the bar so low for Trudeau. Corey Tenaik, one of the staff members, said if he shows up with his pants on, he'll win the debate. And he showed up more than just with his pants on. He actually outperformed the expectations of many people, even those who were expecting him to do well. He probably performed better than most people thought. So that really helped change things for the view of the public as to whether Justin Trudeau could potentially lead, and it led to a majority government. It's a piece to the puzzle. It's not always, and usually is not, the thing that changes voters' minds, but it matters a lot, because even, no knockout punch, it can change the direction of a campaign or help solidify where the numbers are heading into these debates. And I think it'll be interesting to see the polling numbers coming out of the French and English debates, because advanced polls open this weekend, and that's when I think a lot of people will try and get this out of the way so that they don't have to face long lineups on September 20th with a fourth wave going on. And it will be a key moment in this campaign, regardless of what happens.
And the Conservatives, we know their platform, but we're going to find out today how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, and so I just got some more details about this, because initially I tweeted, hey, we're getting this at 4 p.m. because they said they're holding a technical briefing at 4. But at the bottom, there's a footnote that said, oh, yeah, we're going to embargo some of the information. So it's now looking like it's going to be 6 p.m. when we're able to publicly announce the details of this, the costing of this platform. This is an issue because the Conservatives released their platform very early in the campaign, which is actually unusual for the Conservatives and Liberals. They normally don't release their campaign, their platforms until midway point through the campaign, roughly. And they did it early this time. And then they started to put the pressure on the Liberals, saying, "Where's your plan? You don't have a plan. Where's your plan?" And so that, was was a problem for the Liberals until they released their platform. And not only did they do that, they had it fully costed, which the other parties did not do yet. They hadn't released the price tags for their promises. And so that then put the pressure on the opposition or the opponents, the other parties, saying, where's your money? You say you have a plan, and you're not showing us how you're going to put dollars and cents together to make this work, especially when you've got a promise like we're going to balance the budget in 10 years without cuts. Details matter when you make promises like that, and the numbers matter when you make promises like that. And so far, the Conservatives haven't been able to answer questions exactly on how they're going to do that. They're promising a 3% increase per year for the next 10 years in economic growth. Those numbers are unheard of. So how are they going to make that work? That's a big question they haven't answered yet. And we hope to get more details just before the debate. But I think the timing of this is strategic so that they can try to take away some of the attack lines from the Liberals and NDP of you don't have a plan, you don't have the numbers to back up your plan. Now we can go into the debate saying, I have a fully costed platform right here to show you. And I think that's the plan for the Conservatives so that they can mute some of the criticisms that they face in this debate. Or maybe, depending on what the numbers are, there could be more questions coming out of it. We'll see what the numbers are later today.
Okay, excellent. Cormac, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right, that's our Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill Bureau Chief for City News. It's all about the debates this week. Tonight, federal leaders going at it in French, tomorrow in English. Are you going to be watching closely? Or do you feel like you already know what's going to be said? Today, during the Talkback Hour, we want to build off our conversation from yesterday when we asked you if you felt like our federal leaders are out of touch with what's important to regular voters. And many of you said yes. We heard a lot of disappointment, the mudslinging in this campaign. Some of you would like our leaders to stop running against each other and start running on some real policies right now. So our question for you today, just ahead of these debates, is this. Have you decided who to vote for? And if you have, are you happy about the choice? Or are you going to hold your nose and do it even though you aren't particularly impressed with the offering of these candidates? We'll hear from you during the Talkback Hour. We'll hear from Barry McLaughlin, Senior Partner, TransformLeaders.ca. He'll join us for our weekly political discussion coming up next, right here on The Rob Snow Show.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. There's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. Then customer service, we're big on that. The cashiers, the deli, you're not, if you ask for something, they're not going to point, it's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there, okay? If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers. And we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, can you try getting me this? Can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now, okay? So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, from like all over the world. And we source it through, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. It's nothing really complicated about that. We turn over a lot of product. We package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You're always going to find, Cuddy turkey breast, San Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands, the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. Your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. Takes, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
Fun
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
And welcome back. Mark Day in for Rob Snow. It's debate night across the river from Parliament Hill. 5 federal party leaders will gather at the Museum of Canadian History in Gatineau for the first of 2 official election debates organized by broadcasters here in this country, with less than 2 weeks to go before the September 20th election. Tonight's French language debate, tomorrow's English debate will be their best chance to sway some undecided voters. Debate participants including Liberal leader Justin Trudeau, the Conservatives' Aaron O'Toole, New Democrat leader Jagmeet Singh, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet, and Green Party leader Annamie Paul. And joining us now to talk more politics, Barry McLaughlin, Senior Partner, TransformLeaders.ca, Senior Fellow with Masters of Political Management Program at Carleton University. And good morning to you, Barry. How are you?
Good morning, Mark. Great to chat with you again.
Great to chat with you, too. And I love chatting with you during an election campaign, whether it's an American or a Canadian. We've had the opportunity to do this many times in the past. And we talk debates. How important are debates, do you think, especially given how close this race is between the Conservatives and Liberals right now?
Well, this is really the last really major set of events, the twin events of French and English debates, in which, the parties can try to move the dial with something that people are paying attention to. It'll get a massive amount of media coverage. It gets very decent ratings usually for the first go-round, but I think it's the next 24, 48, 72 hours where the clips are used in social media, newscasts, and commentary. So I think it will have a potential to move the dial, which in a very tight election like this, something's got to give at this point.
What goes into a debate preparation? What happens in terms of, when we're looking at the parties themselves, and as the leaders get prepared, what are the leaders going to be doing all day to prepare for this?
Well, they will be, rehearsing. They will be very often. You do your simulations. You continue to do them. Some leaders like to just have the briefing book and go over it quietly on that day. Others want to get that kind of live rehearsal feel to it. So it'll vary a little bit by the leader. A tremendous amount of prep has gone into this. Usually, I've done about half a dozen national leaders, and they've all done about 4, 5, or 6 days of debate prep over leading up to the campaign, into the campaign, and then just before the debate. And so a lot of work has gone into this. One slip and it's awkward. You have to kind of do recovery mode. Attack points, one-liners, they're all going to be there. They all try to look like they're not scripted, but there's a lot of one-liners that they want to hit with, get sound bites with, get tweets with. So there's a lot of work that goes into this for sure.
How much prep for a French debate? Do you think is there a difference between the English one?
Yes, there is. Yeah. For Anglo leaders, everything is in French. From they want everything. The conversations around it, everything in French. They want to make sure they've got the right exact phrasing. They go over that a number of times. Obviously, the weaker the Anglophone leader is in French, the more that's true. And so they know they have to just make a decent showing. So I think for some leaders, let's take Aaron O'Toole, I think he's got to have a decent showing here. He doesn't need to win this debate. He just doesn't want to lose it. So he doesn't want to look like he's left out, watching Justin Trudeau and lead the way. I think he's got to show that he can actually hold his own. I think that's really got to be his goal. And Justin Trudeau, I think, you're seeing a lot of, he's turned into an attack mode. This is not Sunny Way's campaign. He's turned into attack mode, and there's going to be a lot of mud being thrown tonight. I think it's going to be a pretty tough debate, and I think it'll get even tougher tomorrow night.
Yes, and it'll be interesting to see how the Green Party, Annamie Paul, does as well. That's one thing Elizabeth May, she always found that comfort in a debate, and of course she's not there anymore. So.
Well, I think it's a good point, I think Annamie Paul, which we haven't really discussed very much in this campaign, I mean, and I realize she's just been mostly in her home riding, but she has a real chance in these debates to make an appearance, to people realize who she is, to speak to her issues, to hold her own, to show credibility. She has a chance to bump those numbers up a bit, which can't be really good news for the NDP, but I think it's the one chance she has to hit a national stage.
We've been talking guns in the last few days of this campaign. One Liberal candidate in Kingston is asking Elections Canada to investigate if the Conservative Party is colluding with the National Firearms Association. Now, this would be via O'Toole's campaign manager, Fred Delory, who's a lobbyist for the gun group. Is this a hidden agenda attack on O'Toole's firearms platform, do you think, or is any real harm here?
Well, I read the letter. I mean, it's long on words and short on substance. I mean, he was a declared lobbyist, and he's not currently lobbying during the campaign, from what I can see. So I think that's a little bit of smoke and mirrors being thrown at it to see what sticks. I think they actually have found an issue. Who would have thought at the beginning of the campaign that firearms control and so on would become an issue? But the Liberals have succeeded in putting it into play. They're going to keep it going. This letter, I think, is trying to get one more day out of it. You'll see Justin Trudeau go at this issue tonight and tomorrow night. They think they can get something there. I think the real issue is the fact that he did change his mind. He's going to keep the order in council in place there in O'Toole and then review. He had it kind of reversed before. I think he's got to show that, yes, I did change my mind, and leaders should change their minds when it's necessary to do so. He's got to turn that into a leadership issue, and he's got to turn on Justin Trudeau and say, "Why don't you change your mind on? You've never changed your mind on X, Y, Z." So I think he's got to really be able to pivot well out of that.
Let's talk about the campaign trail. And just over the weekend in Newmarket, Trudeau was at a Liberal rally, and there were some more protesters showing up. Some gravel was thrown, insults hurled again. But do any votes change? What's your take on the political calculus of how much Trudeau can gain sympathy by running against this anti-vax crowd, as he calls them?
Well, that's right. I think what he's doing is he's using this. By the way, nobody wants this. This is deplorable conduct. All leaders have condemned it vociferously. This is really not a thing in Canada that we in any way want to encourage. We want to get rid of all this kind of conduct. But I think that what Justin Trudeau is doing is he's trying to cast a net of deplorables, including he's trying to put in Conservatives under that net and try to say all these anti-vaxxers, including the Conservatives. So he's trying to use it to broaden the net and sweep them all under the same net. Whether that works or not, I'm not really sure. But again, it's given him another issue that he can look like he's fighting for the values of Canadians. So I think this is, in a way, it's a golden gift to him. I know it sounds odd, but he has turned it into an issue in which he can look more leader-like in response to it.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to the rest of this campaign and, of course, the French debate, the English debate tomorrow night. Barry, always great to touch base with you. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you. My pleasure, Mark.
All right. Barry McLaughlin, Senior Partner, TransformLeaders.ca, Senior Fellow with the Masters of Political Management program at Carleton. Again, the 5 federal party leaders gathering at the Museum of Canadian History tonight for the first of 2 official election debates organized by the broadcasters. Less than 2 weeks to go before the September 20th election. Tonight's French language debate, tomorrow's English debate may be their best chance to sway voters. The Political Fix is next, coming up after the news. You're listening to City News, and we're on Rogers TV.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, September 8th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 17 degrees. And here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa City Council meets about a half an hour from now at 10 o'clock after getting into City Hall past a group protesting something on the agenda today. This is the agreement to redevelop the Herongate area over the next 25 years. Now, some feel this arrangement between developer and city doesn't go far enough to protect future rents on the site, which have dedicated low-rent units. The company says those renters are going to be protected. In federal politics, your first of two chances this week to see the federal party leaders go head-to-head in debates. French debate being held tonight at 8 o'clock. English debate will be held tomorrow night. Registration for in-person runs open today at Tamarack Race Weekend in May of next year. They're opening the registration for 5,000 spots at noon today. After 2 years of virtual races, this one will be in person. That's the plan right now. You can register for your distance and run Ottawa.ca starting at noon. Economists will be keeping a close eye on the Bank of Canada announcement this morning, but they do expect the central bank will keep the key interest rate at 0.25%. City News Time 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
And welcome back to the program. Mark Day in for Rob Snow. It's time for the political fix. Debates tonight. Federal party leaders facing off in the first of two official election debates in an attempt to sway voters on Election Day, September 20th. Debates come in as opinion polls suggest the Liberals and Conservatives right now are stuck in a two-way race. Now, in 2019, nearly 7.5 million Canadians tuned into the English debate across all traditional social media platforms, while nearly 3 million tuned in to the official French debate. Tonight's French debate begins at 8 p.m., and the English debate tomorrow at 9. To talk more about politics in this federal election with the Political Fix, Jason Leader, President, Enterprise Canada, and Jeff Turner, Vice President, Blue Sky Strategy Group, joins us on the Rob Snow Show on City News and Rogers TV. First, Jason, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Mark. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you again. And Jeff Turner joining us. Hi, Jeff. How are things?
Nice to be with you, Mark, as well as Jason and all, as always.
All right, so let's get to it. Let's debate. It is the season of debates. We've been asking a lot of our guests over the last few days as we get closer to it. Jason, we'll start with you. How important are they, and especially given where we are right now with such a tight race between Justin Trudeau and Aaron O'Toole?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Given the circumstances, it's very important. So sometimes debates come and go, and people aren't really sort of paying too much attention, and they just really almost reinforce some of the things that we already think that we know about people. So this one's we're in a very weird situation. Number one, everybody in Canada knows Justin Trudeau. 95% name recognition. Everybody's made up their mind about him, roughly. They used to give him the benefit of the doubt. They don't quite give him the benefit of the doubt quite as far as they used to. Aaron O'Toole is a virtual unknown. I know that, people like the three of us and probably most of your listeners know who Aaron O'Toole is, but most Canadians will be seeing Aaron O'Toole for the first time over the next few days, which is a little shocking, but it's absolutely true. And I think they'll have woken up to the fact that there's a real race going on, especially in Ontario here. It's a very sort of neck-and-neck race that's going to be deciding this federal campaign. So very important, crucially important. And I think for Mr. Trudeau as well, he's trying to get control of this narrative back in terms of, I'm the one to beat. Mr. O'Toole is trying to reintroduce himself. And then we've got Mr. Singh over there, who's, really, really popular personally, but hasn't been able to translate it into votes. So the stakes are very high for all three party leaders. We've got Annamie Paul, we've got Mr. Blanchette on the stage as well. They'll be bit players, but for those three leaders, this election will be won or lost in the next 10 days. The debate's going to kick that off.
Yeah, Jeff, would you agree?
I think Jason's got a lot of good points there. I'll just build on it by saying debates can be a flop after the fact and not actually really amount to much. But strategically in an election campaign, usually falling somewhere in the middle. It's one of the only times where, first and foremost, leaders will meet each other. As we all know, campaigns have highly structured, highly strategized tours and appearances. And this is one of the few environments where they're obviously put in the same room together and allowed to ideally debate each other. And I think that's a moment where we have people who are both tuning in, and something will probably happen, and that'll help drive what the remaining weeks of the campaign are either about, or using content from that appearance to drive home your messages or drive home perhaps the errors of your opponent. The second thing I'd say is we hear a lot of people talking about that knockout punch that everybody looks for. I think that's a bit of also, it's great if it appears. It's also something that's designed for the old media. It was designed to be clicked on the nightly news that everybody watched. It was something that got spun around in editorials and other things. Now debate content is very much made for social media. Every party will clip their own very selective highlight reel of their person doing very well or their opponent doing very poorly. Everybody will push those mediums out onto social media. So there's a lot more to it now where those people are together. And I think the reason I said off the top that it's the one and only opportunity for these people to get together on one stage, means it's a little bit out of their hands. And when it comes, I won't disagree with Jason's assessment of the Prime Minister in terms of being well known and people having opinions about him. On Mr. O'Toole's side, he's run some people would call disciplined. I would call it a little bit shy of a campaign. He's in the basement of the Westin Hotel in Ottawa. He's gone on the bus for an hour here or there outside of Ottawa. But he's been doing a very controlled campaign to date, and I think I'd like to see, at least as a Liberal partisan, how well that stands up when he's face-to-face with people.
Yeah, Jason, the last election, the French debate, it hurt Andrew Scheer, who was the leader at the time. But Aaron O'Toole is not Andrew Scheer. And after the TVA debate, I think that, the big word coming out of that, people, were talking about is that Aaron O'Toole made it out alive, unscathed in a sense, where at least he got out alive, and that was important for him. And I'm sure the same goes for tonight's French debate, the national debate.
Yeah, I watched the TVA debate. I watched it start to finish, even though my French is about at a grade 12 level of max or grade 10 or whatever the heck it is. He was good, and so it's funny, just pulling the partisan hat aside. Yeah. Mr. Trudeau is better in French. My own eyes tell me that Mr. Trudeau is better in French than in English. I just think his presentation is much more straightforward. It's less breathy. It's actually a very, very, there's a lot of substance to it. Mr. Blanchet's really good in French, obviously, too. It's his mother tongue. He's the sort of home team in Quebec. Mr. O'Toole was expected, I think. Flop would have been too strong a word, but I think people were pleasantly surprised that Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Singh were able to handle themselves in that French debate and have like a real debate and a real discussion. They weren't getting, sort of tripped up on vocabulary and verb tense and that kind of stuff. So in the English debate, it's funny. Like, I know Mr. O'Toole has been practicing like heck for the French debate. The English debate, the language isn't a barrier, and sometimes that can be a huge advantage. Sometimes it can be a disadvantage. What I think Mr. O'Toole has to remember and be is I think people are actually looking for somebody to bring us together here. And the Prime Minister has run a really weird campaign. I mean, he's gone from sunny ways to, essentially demonizing, 10 to 15 to 20% of our society. He has anti-vaxxers, which I think we're all frustrated with that, but he's running a really sort of angry campaign, and it's being returned in kind. And I think people are looking at it and sort of saying, can anyone bring us together? And that's O'Toole's challenge, right? Is can he be that guy? And I think that's what people are going to be looking for on Thursday night.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think some of the messages, the main messages tonight that, we'll start with Justin Trudeau, that he will be focused on getting out there tonight?
Well, I think you've seen the last number of days has seen a bit of a shift in the messaging track for everyone, especially as Mr. O'Toole is on the defensive increasingly on some of his policy positions. I guess at the downside of publishing his platform and putting in his own words what he intends to do, and he's had to backpedal on a few of those things as a result. So I wouldn't be surprised if obviously we'll see highlights of that continuing into tonight and tomorrow night. And I think the reason why that focus is happening, in particular on things like guns and public health care, is, Mr. O'Toole, I think, is trying to present himself as all things to all people. There is no doubt that he is resonating out there as a moderate, that he's trying to present that image. He's doing it, as I said earlier, in a very controlled way with very controlled audiences. But, I saw a cartoon the other day, too, with, the O'Toole bus swerving all over the road from alt-right to center-left. And I think what the Prime Minister and the Liberals are trying to do is show that, Mr. O'Toole can present however he wants, but he's still dragging behind him a conservative movement that does not think these things, that does not believe in these things, that doesn't vote for these things. And so he's trying to have it both ways. And I think Canadians usually can see that. And that's one of the things I think we'll be seeing him being hammered on tonight, but probably by more than just the Liberals.
Well, I mean, the Liberals have been on the attack. The Conservatives have been on the defensive for 4 days in a row now. Jason, what can they do to get back on message at this point? Or are they off message? Maybe, this is just the tactic from the Liberals. They came out with the attack ads over the weekend, 2 of them. They don't even mention their platform. It's just all about O'Toole.
Yeah, so anyways, we're going to do politics differently. We're going to bring a positive, inclusive approach. I'm sort of joking. The Justin Trudeau of 2015 is sort of dead and buried, I guess. So the gun stuff, that was an own goal. They shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. Whenever you try and sort of square that circle with sort of standing up for the rights of the hunters out there and those in rural Canada, you always get this attack. They should have anticipated it, and the Liberals have been doing a good job sort of pressing their advantage. I think they probably squeezed the juice out of that lemon. I mean, the problem for the Liberals is gun violence is at an all-time high in our cities, or not an all-time high. I shouldn't say that. It's increased exponentially over the last couple of years, and sort of gang violence in Toronto is at a fever pitch. And the sort of the long gun and sort of things that they're doing, the policy stuff, they really don't have a good leg to stand on. So at some point, someone's going to turn to them and say, your policies aren't working. And I've seen a little bit of that as well. That said, they're on their front foot. They've been doing a little bit better the last couple of days. And Mr. O'Toole, your question about sort of how he gets back on track. Well, I actually think he has been on track for the most part the last few days. I think they've been drumming out policy. Just today I saw some really good policy out there on the tourism and hospitality sector, and that stuff is getting out there. He's doing a telephone town hall with 20, 30,000 people every single night. People are listening to him, and I think the question that's going to be asked is, fundamentally at the end of this thing, we're not going to be about one policy or another. It's going to be, am I comfortable with O'Toole or not? The Liberals are doing everything they can to make people uncomfortable, and I think his goal and his objective, and I think he's been, succeeding at it, is exceeding expectations, frankly.
Yeah, Jeff, to you, I mean, the topics, the gun topic has come out. Abortion came up yesterday at a campaign stop in Montreal for Justin Trudeau. Is it a mistake to be, working with these topics, at press, when you were holding a press conference, and those are the two things you're not talking about your platform, but you're more or less talking about the abortion and the guns and debates that we've had for years now?
I think there's no question that this election, and as unclear as it is now, is about leadership. And so there's certainly a package of proposals that you have. There's certainly a program that you want to implement. There's a certain kind of ideology that you're going to bring to that table. That's all very important. But we also, part of the reason why our politics focuses so much on the national leaders, as we all vote for a different person in our own ridings, unless you happen to live in those ridings of those leaders, the focus on leadership is really big. And I think so these issues are sure, they're about the regulation that prohibits semi-automatic rifles that look like military-style rifles and not a bolt-action hunting rifle that we're talking about here. But that's also a question of leadership. As I said earlier, it's about flip-flopping or about and I don't think this charge of a hidden agenda is not hidden. It's written in the platform. It's the thing that their campaign director made a living doing, lobbying conservative officials for before he became the campaign director. It's right there in the National Firearms Association, who are standing up for their candidate. And it's right there in plain view. And I think that's a leadership question as much as a policy question. But I don't want to not answer your question. What's this election about from a Liberal perspective? $10 a day childcare. We have agreements signed with 7 provinces, more to come, and that's going to make a real difference of thousands of dollars. And I can tell you for sure, as somebody who spends thousands of dollars every month in childcare, it's going to make a difference. And climate change, I think, is the one that we haven't heard enough about yet. And I think that's going to be something we see a lot more of in the next 2 weeks, especially for the Liberals, who don't always have to attack Conservatives. The NDP plan has been exposed as paper thin, with no ambition and no details behind it. It's not unusual for the NDP, but I think independent analysis has shown the Liberal plan to be far stronger than any of its competitors, and I think that remains an incredibly motivating issue for most voters, especially those accessible to the Liberal Party. And I think we'll see a lot more of that to come because there is a stark contrast before the Liberal plan and others.
All right, we'll talk more about what this election is all about. Also, one candidate, a national candidate, will not be on stage for the debates tonight and tomorrow. We'll talk more about Maxime Bernier, the PPC, in this campaign. It's all coming up. It's the Political Fix on City News and Rogers TV.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, where I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me, I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew that we have to wait, and we knew that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song from my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what the grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that will bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Mark Day in for Rob Snow. On this Wednesday, Political Fix, Jason Leader, President Enterprise Canada. Jeff Turner, Vice President, Blue Sky Strategy Group, joins us today on the Political Fix. Jason, let's start with you. What do you think this election is all about? Do you think the parties have given up on trying to convince people there is a big idea that they're running on right now?
I don't. I'm not trying to be partisan with this. I actually think Trudeau has given up on that a little bit. I think for him, the election is about demonizing O'Toole, which is a different approach for him, but I understand it, and I understand they're sort of getting along in the tooth, and you get, sort of you forget and you drift away from who you presented yourself as before. And I actually think that's a bit of a mistake for Mr. Trudeau, but that's okay. I think for them, I think Jeff hit the nail on the head in terms of the policies they do want to put forward, though. I think it really is about childcare and climate change. But I think my sort of comment on that is you probably haven't heard that much of him talking about those things. You've heard about him in protests. You've heard about him and sort of Aaron O'Toole. You've heard about him talking about guns and abortion and other stuff. But I don't don't think you've heard him talk about that much if you're just a regular Canadian. So I think their strategy, I'm not so sure about it. For O'Toole, what it really is about is change, and there's a bunch of policies. I think he's got 160 pages in there of policy stuff, but fundamentally it's about who's got the plan to dig us out of this mess, is sort of his overall message. And Singh, it's very interesting. His sort of message is, remember that Justin Trudeau from 2015 that you were so excited about? I'm a version of that, and I'm not going to disappoint you. Like, that's sort of his message here. So is it about policy? Elections are never about policy. Since a free trade election, we really haven't had an election that's been about an idea or about a specific policy idea or plank. But that's sort of the overall message is, sort of Trudeau, I got us out of this pandemic mostly. Keep with me and don't elect this psycho. O'Toole's sort of like, you can trust me. I'm the one to dig us out of this mess. And Singh's like, remember Trudeau when you were so excited about him? Well, I'm that guy now. And so it's a very interesting debate. And nobody's really taken it by the guts and is winning it yet. But I think we're going to see some separation the next 10 days for Mr. Trudeau or Mr. O'Toole. I just don't know who.
Yeah, Jeff, why are we here right now in the middle of an election during a pandemic? Why did Justin Trudeau call an election, and what got us here?
I think earlier in the summer, at least, it was fairly clear that we were in a bit of a break period with the pandemic. Not that the pandemic went away, for sure. It was not the best summer ever for a lot of people. But I think there was a moment where, at least from the Prime Minister's perspective, there was an opportunity to set a course for the coming 2 years or 4 years. Especially as the economic recovery takes front and center stage, and as we do the last mile stuff with COVID. And that last mile, of course, as we've talked about, is very frustrating and is meeting a lot of roadblocks that seem difficult to clear. And I think what probably surprised Liberals or campaigners is that the retrospective got exactly zero traction in the public arena. I think, and the Liberals didn't exactly go out hard on that. It wasn't their core message all week, but I think there was probably a bit more of an expectation that the kind of leadership that followed science, that didn't have some of the big mistakes that some provinces made, that was fairly consistent throughout, that stepped up with $8 out of $10 for every support dollar that went to people and businesses in this country, that secured vaccines months ahead of schedule, had enough vaccines for every Canadian to be double dosed by this summer. Those are knock it out of the park, results. And I think what was challenging is people said, well, what's next? To answer your question about sort of why not, a big policy anymore, I think, and this might make conservatives, really excited, but the reality is we're doing so many big things now. We're doing big things on climate change, big things on social policy like daycare. It's also economic policy, big things on trying to modernize our economy into the 21st century so that we can be on the top of the pile as the recovery around the world takes shape. And as climate change more and more drives our economic foundations. And I think the challenge is there's so many big things. In the old days, you'd have a government kind of plodding along, and they'd come in with $1 billion promise. And the $1 billion promise was huge. It was the news of the day, it was the news of the month, it was the focus of the campaign. The reality is now we have so many big things going on that are costing billions of dollars. Lots of those, of course, pandemic-related. They are emergency responses. But there are big things happening. And so I think there isn't a singular focus on that one thing the government's trying to tackle, because as a society, we're trying to tackle a lot of really big things right now that are becoming more and more clear to us as we make our way through the 21st century in this pandemic. And I think hopefully people are seeing across all of the things being committed to, things that speak to their concerns. And I think the last thing I'll say quickly, though, is modern voters, especially younger demographics who are more digital and online, really demand of parties detailed plans on the things that they care about. So I don't think parties are as easily able to get away with kind of waving away that issue as not part of our core plan, because there are lots of voters out there that say, well, if you don't have a plan about plastics, or if you don't have a plan about climate change, if you don't have a plan about that issue that is most important to me and my community, then they're not going to vote for you if somebody else does have that platform. And so I think there's a need to have more of that.
Yeah. Jason?
Sorry, Jeff, I didn't want to interrupt you there. And Mark, Jeff and I get along really well. You can probably get that from the discussion here. But it's funny, he talked for 3 or 4 minutes there, and, you asked him why there's an election. And he's having the same trouble as most Liberal candidates and the Prime Minister are having, which is you didn't get a quick answer. Like, the honest to goodness answer is Justin Trudeau thought he could win. And that's okay. That's politics. I get it. Like, it's not even a criticism for me. But I think a lot of Canadians are looking at it and saying, wait a second, this fourth wave is sneaking up. And like, I've knocked on doors. The first question, we're having an election? Why? What's going on? And so I actually think normally that doesn't even come up in an election campaign. People just say, oh, I guess it's time for an election. But this time, I think people are looking at it and saying it's sort of an indictment of the guy's character that, wait a second, I didn't think he would do that. Because the honest to goodness answer is he thought he could win a majority government. That's the answer to the question. And people can see that. They're not stupid. Canadians are like, okay, well, he thought he could, press the advantage. He thought he could catch O'Toole flat-footed. And the truth is he hasn't. And so it's a really weird time in politics.
I want to ask you, and I people who are angry, they're showing up at some of those liberal campaign rallies. Thousands are showing up to listen to Maxime Bernier speak in Manitoba. CBC has them polling higher than the Greens. We'll start with you really quickly on this one, Jeff. Do you think that the PPC party, Maxime Bernier, that they can pick up any seats in this election?
Oh, geez, I don't know about the seat part. I have seen just in reporting that the leader himself may have a chance to reclaim the votes, but I haven't seen the numbers on that. I think they are still very much a fringe party, even if that fringe is creeping up into the 5 or even 8% range. That won't be enough to elect people in most ridings, or any ridings, I guess, aside from the one I mentioned. But it certainly will have an impact on voters moving from other positions. In particular, obviously, it's a very anti-liberal movement, so I don't think Liberals are losing any votes to the PPC, but I certainly believe that Conservatives are, and even some NDP votes might be moving to the PPC as a matter of frustration or anger. I think, listen, it's really taking off in these last few days. It's certainly catching people's attention. And I think like most things in this election, really, and a lot of us have been predicting that this week is when this election really is going to start to kick into gear because people are back from their summer, they're tuning in, their kids are back at school, they're back in routine. And the surprise story of this week going into debates was that purple signs have started to pop up everywhere. And that as you mentioned, you're seeing that expression out there, both in terms of crowds and how those crowds comport themselves. And they're being egged on by Maxime Bernier and a loose collection of other, rogue folks out there.
Jason, what do you think of Maxime Bernier and the PPC campaigns such far?
Yeah, I mean, it's a disgrace. I've never been a fan of Maxime Bernier. I think he should have done what most people do when they lose a leadership race and go away and do what it is required. He's, sort of made it all about him. I worked with him in Ottawa for a while, or saw him close up. He wasn't a hard worker, and he was never a team player, and that's what we're seeing now. They found their issue, though, right? Like, so, they muddled along at, sort of 2% of the people who thought the Conservative Party wasn't a right-wing enough option, and now they've got their issue, right? Whether it's, the lockdowns of Doug Ford or the sort of Justin Trudeau's vaccine mandates or mask mandates, this is the issue. And, there's a cadre of society that's just, they're really, really, really pissed off.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.